During the true ending for Steins Gate, Okabe comes back with Beta Suzuha after failing to save Makise Kurisu. As he was wallowing in despair, Mayuri slaps him, followed by an email and a phone call from Okabe in the year 2025. These string of events lead to Okabe trying again, saving Makise Kurisu, opening Steins Gate and preventing World War III, ending the longest summer of his life. But what if he never got the email or that call? What if Mayuri never slapped him? What if Okabe gave up and never found the path to Steins Gate? That's where Steins Gate 0 comes in. It details the story of 2025 Okabe, the one that failed to save Kurisu and kept living. Without further delay, let's re-enter the world of Steins Gate through Steins Gate 0. Let's witness how impossible finding the path to Steins Gate was, and how incredible it is that Okabe and the lab managed to do it anyway. As always, here's a spoiler warning before we proceed. Not only will we be going over spoilers for Steins Gate 0, but for the original Steins Gate as well. 0 is too intrinsically tied to the first game for me to speak about it separately, so watch at your own discretion. Leave if you need to and come back if you want to. Just know that I appreciate you giving me a piece of your time. It's gonna be a long one, so let's get right to it. Steins Gate 0 starts during the first game's true ending. Okabe left with Beta Worldline Suzuha to save Kurisu in July 28, 2010, but as we all remember, that first attempt ended in failure. When he comes back, however, he doesn't get a call from his future self. He has enough fuel to try again, but he doesn't. He gives up. This is the story that follows the Okabe from 2025, the one that found a way to Steins Gate, the one that gave his younger self a second chance at saving the love of his life, Makise Kurisu. We skip to November 2010, 5 months after the prologue. We see a much different Okabe here, a hollow, quieter, and tired Okabe. He's at a seminar thanks to an invitation by his college professor, Professor Aizaki. The presenters are Alexis Luscadet and Maho Hiyajo, two scientists at Victor Kandra University. They present Amadeus, an artificial intelligence that has a personality and is made from a digital copy of Maho's memories from 3 days prior. After the seminar concludes, and Okabe has an outburst during the middle of it, just like in Kurisu's presentation in the Alpha World line, he starts talking to Maho Hiyajo. The two start chatting, which leads to Okabe discovering Maho and Kurisu's friendship before she passed away. The two went to Victor Kandra together and were the youngest of the researchers, so their friendship quickly blossomed. Maho then reveals that her and Luscadet are working on a different Amadeus, an AI built off of a digitalized copy of Makise Kurisu's memories from 8 months ago, i.e. before she passed in the summer. Okabe is asked to be a tester, helping in Amadeus' development through frequent interactions with her. Luscadet believes that having one of Kurisu's friends besides Maho be a tester can lead to good results. Okabe agrees to the proposition. From November until mid-December, we meet old and new faces, so let's start with Mayuri's friends. We have Katsumi Nakase, but her friends call her by her cosplay name Fubuki. She's 16 years old, a high schooler, and friends with Mayuri. Next we have Kade Kurishima, a 20-year-old college student. She's a cosplayer along with Fubuki. Lastly we have Yuki Yamane, a 21-year-old college student and cosplayer. She met Mayuri and Daru through Komima. Yuki Yamane, as you could probably tell from her surname, is Suzuha's mother and Daru's future wife. As for old faces, we have Lukako, Ferris, Daru, and Suzuha. Suzuha is forced to stay in 2010 because her goal is still the same: prevent World War III. Okabe is her key to doing that, so she has to convince him. But if she can't, she'll be forced to find another way. She stays with Daru in the lab, claiming she's his sister to avoid explaining the time travel shenanigans. We also see Moeka, Mr. Braun, and Nai, but I'll mention them later. Of course, we have Okabe, the main character himself. He's gone through severe depression, anxiety, PTSD, and panic attacks since his attempt to save Kurisu. Her death messed him up bad here, making his guilt even worse. So imagine the good talking Amadeus is doing him, constant reminder of the person he loves. Once mid-December comes, we reach a crucial moment of the game. The game is split into two branching paths with two important endings: Promise Rinascimento and Vega and Altair. It's decided by whether Okabe turns his phone off or not when Amadeus calls him on December 15th. I'll be doing the Promise Rinascimento route first, before returning to do Vega and Altair later. Promise Rinascimento has Okabe turn his phone off. Once he does, he runs into Kaede and Fubuki, when randomly, the world line shifts. He calls Mayuri to make sure she's okay before continuing with his day. In this route, we meet Judy Reyes, a neuroscientist and professor from Victor Kandra. She's friends with Luscadet and Maho. We also find out that Suzuha is looking for a girl she time traveled with from 2036. Her name is Kaguri Shina, Mayuri's future adopted daughter. The game mentions this plot point before the split, but the difference in this route is Okabe's involvement in the search for Kaguri. Kaguri was 10 years old when she was separated from Suzuha in 1998. Kaguri lived for 10 years in this time period, while Suzuha left for 2010, making Kaguri older than her now. Okabe helps Suzuha and Daru in her search for Kaguri. Finding out that Daru and Moeka have connections thanks to his job as a hacker, Okabe enlists her help as well. During the investigation, Lukako calls Okabe about a girl that was taken in by his shrine. She has amnesia, so Lukako wanted Okabe's help jogging her memory. And I want to apologize for splashing the cold water on you if you were invested by the mystery, but this girl is Kaguri. We find this out when Suzuha sees her at the lab when Lukako brings her over. Kaguri has no memories or recollection of who she is, so the goal now is to regain her memories. Before we move on, I have to mention the Christmas party. Mayuri was planning to throw a Christmas party at the lab. Due to scheduling issues, however, nobody could make it, so they moved it to New Year's instead. A happy New Year's if I were nothing could go wrong, right? The lab gets raided and Kaguri almost gets kidnapped. Luckily, Suzuha and Tennoji help fend off the attack, but a new issue arises. What the hell happened with Kaguri before she got here? Her behavior is too erratic for her to have lived a normal, peaceful life. Regetting her memories is even more urgent than ever now. So Okabe not only resecures Moeka's help, but also recruits Tennoji since it's better to have Sun working for them than against the lab. One day, he gets a call from Amadeus, who he hasn't been talking to as of late. He picks up, but as a result, the world line shifts, sending him to the Alpha world line. In the lab, he sees none other than Makise Kurisu. We have the two reconnect, with Okabe remembering that Mayuri's dead in this world line. We find out that Makise made the phone wave again, giving Okabe an out to return to the Beta world line, but he doesn't want to. Pain he experienced warped Okabe's perspective. He wants to protect Mayuri, but Makise is right in front of him. He wants to save both, but won't do what's necessary to do so. He's running, and Makise knows that, so she gives him the push to move forward. Forget her, and live your life. He doesn't want to though. Even if it was only for a few weeks, Makise still made a huge impact on Okabe's heart. He can't just easily forget that, but to be able to move on, he has to. So he does. Makise sends him back to the Beta world line, where Makise's sacrifice remains. Notable differences become apparent when he returns to the Beta world line. For starters, the party wasn't raided on New Year's. Second, Kaguri's mind is deteriorating. She's being overtaken by the digital copy of Kurisu's memories. Okabe's certain that the people who held her implemented Amadeus' memories into the poor girl. Last of all, Okabe doesn't have access to Amadeus. This is due to the Amadeus project being cancelled long before the events of the game in this world line. Even Maho doesn't have access anymore. So whoever did it also has control over the Amadeus project as a whole. Okabe now has to find a way to save Kaguri from Kurisu's memories, for Kaguri's sake and for Kurisu's. Over the coming days, Kaguri starts slowly acting more like Kurisu. Her speech, her memories, and mannerisms are changing. The longer it goes on, the more Kaguri loses her very being. The lab tries to erase Kurisu's memories from Kaguri as a way to save her. They seemingly manage to activate the erasure, but it's uncertain because the world line changes again. Instead of going to a parallel world line, we go forward to 2036. Okabe wakes up in the future basically half dead. He manages to escape encampment and is found by the Suzuha from this era. They regroup with the Future Gacha lab where Daru is manning the helm. Daru gives him a rundown of what's happening. Mainly because if you remember, Okabe is supposed to die in 2025. That's concurrent in both the Beta and Alpha world lines. Turns out he was brain dead, but not physically dead. The lab members took care of him because A, that's their boy, and B, Maho made a copy of Okabe's memories, like with Kurisu and Amadeus back in 2011. So he's quote unquote revived by this technological marvel. To quickly explain how this works, the Okabe we followed up to this point lived his life until 2025. By then he was captured and tortured because the lab is considered a dangerous organization. So that Okabe is mentally dead. The Okabe we follow now is a copy of the one from January 2011. So there's an 11-year gap in Okabe's life where he's brain dead. Time that was outright robbed from him. But I want to emphasize this point, this is still Okabe Rintaro. Even if it's an older version of him with outdated memories, this is still Okabe. It's different for Kaguri because not only are Kurisu's memories not her own, she suffered amnesia and brainwashing, so her individuality and memories are ill-defined as is. Anyway, the next goal is sending him back to the past. Okabe's seen the horrors of what 2036 holds and why Suzuha wants to prevent it. Lukaku even died in his arms during all of this, so thanks to Maho and Daru, the phone wave and time loop machine have been rebuilt. All Okabe has to do is time loop 3,000 times back to 2011. Yep, 3,000 time leaps. A task not for the faint of heart. If anyone could do it though, it's him. And by golly, the son of a gun does it. Now in 2011, Okabe does several things. First, he makes up with Suzuha by having her deck him in his chest. This knocked some sense into him and brought back the progenitor of chaos, Hoin Kiyoma, the mad scientist in Okabe's alter ego, the one who saved Mayuri and made her his hostage, the one who'll prevent World War III, the one who'll save Makise Kurisu, and the one who'll find a way to Steins Gate. He's back and he's locked in. Secondly, he makes Maho and Kaguri lab members. He also gives everybody their pins because in the Beta world line, Lukaku and Ferris don't know they're lab members until now. Third, he tells everybody everything so they're caught up to speed. Last but not least, after telling them everything, he asks for their help in destroying the laptop, deleting Amadeus to prevent World War III, saving Kurisu, and reaching Steins Gate. They all resoundingly agree, so they get to work. To make it short, we find out the main bad guy is in Tokyo Denki's basement, Okabe's college he attends. They demanded for Okabe to bring the laptop there because they have Kaguri. Okabe goes with Suzuha and they find out that Judy Reyes was the perpetrator. She works for DERPA, a government agency in the United States. Basically, Amadeus can be used for military purposes. If they can copy an elite soldier's memory data and transfer it to others, you'd have an obedient super soldier. This of course was a concern for both Maho and Kurisu during Amadeus' development. To make another long story short, Okabe stalls Reyes long enough to stop her from implementing Kurisu's memories into Kaguri. Reyes' goal is to have Kaguri make the time machine because they know about the research paper Kurisu crafted. Daru erases Amadeus just in time, but Reyes didn't realize this and fries her brain when she tries to implement the memories into her mind instead of Kaguri's. The lab won. Now we skip to December 2011, where Maho comes back to Japan. The lab's all here, Kaguri's fine, and Yuki's a lab member now, bringing the total count to 11. They also rebuilt the phone wave for one special purpose, to send a D-mail to Okabe's phone. Okabe was inspired by 2036 Daru when he and the lab fooled the world into thinking Okabe was dead. The events changed, but the result remained the same by the world's eye. So what if you applied that to Kurisu somehow? This is what the D-mail includes. Quote, "The world can be tricked. Connect the possibilities. Deceive the world." This message is sent to Okabe in December 2010, and that's where the Promise Rinascimento route ends. This route is the one you're meant to play first because it influences the Vega and Altair side. This path has 2 alternate endings attached to it, but I'll talk about them later. To get to the Vega and Altair route, Okabe chooses to leave his phone on after his conversation with Amadeus. This time around, when Okabe runs into Fubuki and Kaide on the bridge later that day, things immediately divert. First, Okabe doesn't get transported to another world line like he did in Promise Rinascimento. This difference is monumental, as you'll see later on. Second, Okabe gets a message during this encounter, the same D-mail we sent during the end of Promise Rinascimento. The mail found its mark, which brings me to something really cool I want to mention. Steins Gate Zero's story is literally built like a zero. If you look at the screen, you'll see how it's laid out. By playing Promise Rinascimento, you complete the first half of the zero before going back to play Vega and Altair through the D-mail. The rest of this route will complete the zero. With the D-mail arriving at its proper destination, it's time to see how it affects this world line. From this interaction onward, the events that follow are significantly different, but what matters most are these. 1. Okabe, Maho, and Leskinen were attacked in a parking garage by a deranged gunman. His motives were unknown, but his actions were erratic in nature. 2. Daru is trying to hack into Kurisu's laptop and he asks Okabe for help. Okabe refuses because of the potential danger it could pose to the lab. 3. Maho tries to learn more about Okabe and his relationship with Kurisu, but he's closed off and guarded about it. 4. Suzuha is searching for Kaguri, but only Daru helps him out this time. Okabe has been avoiding Suzuha in the lab because of his decision to not go back in time, so he isn't helping. And finally 5. Okabe's been interacting with Amadeus more compared to Promise Rinascimento, feeling his dependency on her. And would you look at that? It's the Christmas party. Just like the New Year's party, it's uber cute. Surely nothing bad is gonna happen like it did on New Year's, right? As everyone's having a good time, Fubuki and Okabe experience reading Steiner and end up in another world line, one where 2010 is ravished by an ongoing war. Okabe is forced to stay in this world line for a month, being transported from location to location by Japanese military until he finally reunites with Fubuki and Yuki. After another ride and intense interrogation, they end up at another base where they reunite with Mayuri, Ferris, Lukako, and Kaide. Before they can fully reconnect, however, Okabe is forced into another vehicle. He's then given a phone with none other than Amadeus on it. Seeing her activates his reading Steiner, sending him back to the world line he's from. After a month away, Okabe is finally back in the lab. After Mayuri and Daru tell him what happened at the party, he goes to see Fubuki in the hospital. The two of them fainted at the party and were taken to the hospital immediately after. Okabe got discharged early, but Fubuki hasn't left after an almost month-long stint at the hospital. He talks to her, confirming that they both experienced that world line. Not only that, but almost everyone in the hospital has experienced some degree of reading Steiner. It's national news at this point. A few days later, Okabe and Maho hang out together. Maho presses him even more about Kurisu once the two are alone. Her suspicions about what happened to Kurisu are growing and he isn't doing anything to dissuade them. The two meet up with Daru once Okabe realized that Maho commissioned a super hacker to crack the laptop. She wanted to see what was in it, as it's what remains of Makise Kurisu's life. Once they get to his hideout, because his business is extremely illegal, Okabe tries to dissuade the two of them once more. But it doesn't work because again, he won't tell her why. So as a last resort, he tells her everything, except for how Makise Kurisu died. She's shocked, but she forces herself to believe it because of Kurisu's involvement and Okabe's sincerity. Their conversation is interrupted when they get attacked by none other than Moeka and the Rounders. Moeka looks to take Okabe and Daru, but is stopped when another group pulls up and guns down almost everyone in the alleyway. The trio manages to make it out alive, but the laptop wasn't so lucky, as it's destroyed in the attack. Now this next scene isn't inherently too important to the summary, but I want to talk about it because it's one of my favorite scenes in the game. Once things settle down, Okabe asks Ferris to take care of Maho until the heat dies down. Later that night, Okabe and Maho are talking in her temporary room Ferris set up for her. She had a nightmare and Okabe came to check on her. She asked him to stay with her for a bit until she falls asleep. As the night draws on, Okabe calls out to Maho, revealing he didn't tell her everything. He was going to tell her he killed Makise and Radio Kaiken, even coming moments away from doing so, but Maho stops him. The pain, self-loathing, hatred, and trauma on his face was too much for her to handle. Maho cares too much for him to see him like that. She never wants to see that expression again, nor does she want to know what happened. Once he falls asleep, he enters a nightmare of his own. Maho touches his hand and comforts him. The night draws on with the two spending it together, an amazing scene that I'm not doing justice. In late January, Maho and Leskinen head back to America, ending their 2-month stay in Japan. Now we skip to late June 2011, where Maho gets picked up from the airport by Okabe, Mayuri, and Ferris. She's here to spend the summer in Japan with her family in Okinawa, but come to find out she's actually here in Akihabara to see Daru and Suzuha. Okabe feared telling Maho about the time machine for this exact reason. He knew she'd try to work on it. He was proven right when he found Maho and Daru experimenting in the lab. He sees the catalyst that created the hell of his own making, the phone wave, rebuilt in the lab. Maho and Okabe have this huge argument which results in Daru, the usually calm and jokey pervert, stepping in and punching the dogs out of Okabe. After everyone calms down, Nukako calls Okabe. He saw Mayuri running towards the radio building crying profusely. Mayuri heard everything because she was coming to the lab, not knowing there was a huge argument going on that she wasn't meant to hear. Okabe runs after her and ends up seeing Dr. Leskinen, the man behind all of this. He works for Strategic Focus. They're an intelligence agency that sells information to world powers. He's one of the men behind his agency and is looking to use the time machine. How did he find out? Leskinen is monitoring Okabe's group through Kaguri and Amadeus. Kaguri and Dr. Leskinen are intrinsically tied in both worlds. He brainwashed her in the future. So when Kaguri disappeared for 10 years, she found Dr. Leskinen again because of the brainwashing. It was easy to do since she's an orphan in the future and an unidentifiable person in the past. In Promise Rinascimento, she escaped and lost her memories, but she ends up being used as a catalyst for Makise's memories by Reyes. In Vega and Altair, she doesn't escape and ends up becoming an agent for Leskinen. The poor girl can't catch a break. Okabe manages to get past him and reaches the rooftop. Once there, he sees Kaguri fighting a gang fight against military soldiers, while Suzuha and Mayuri hide near the time machine. After Kaguri is mortally wounded, Suzuha and Mayuri leave Kaguri to Okabe. This is when we find out a controversial plot twist in this world line when Okabe takes off her helmet. Kaguri in the Vega and Altair timeline has been masquerading as Yuki Yamane this whole time. Let me try to explain. In Promise Rinascimento, Kaguri is Kaguri and Yuki is Yuki. There's no deception going on because Kaguri escaped Leskinen's claws. In Vega and Altair, however, since she didn't escape, Leskinen used this to his advantage. He pulled strings to have Yuki study abroad in France, having Kaguri take her place in Akihabara instead. Kaguri got plastic surgery so there'd be no discrepancy in their appearances. Once Suzuha and Mayuri make it inside the time machine, the plan is put into play. Instead of going back in time to save Kurisu, they look to save Okabe back in August 2010, spurring him on to try again and save Kurisu. This is known as Operation Arclight. I'll explain more on that later though. Mayuri, once in the time machine, sends her Hikoboshi a message. Before they're able to leave, however, a helicopter comes over and blows up the time machine. Nothing's left of it and its passengers. Narrowly managing to escape the chaos, Okabe makes it to the lab where Maho, Daru, and Ferris wait. With Mayuri's death setting in, he finally reads the message, which I'll show on screen now.
オカリンの周りにはダルくんがいて、すずさんもいて、デカくんもいて、フェリスちゃんもいて、ユキさんもいて、それにマホさんも加わった。だから今度はね、私の出番。だってこれはラボメンナンバー002の初めての大きな任務なんだから。オカリンはきっと心配すると思うけど大丈夫だよ。それにもしも何かあったとしても必ず助けに来てくれるって信じてるから。私の大好きな法院京馬が新しく作ったタイムマシンに乗って必ず。だから私は行ってきます。必ず戻ります。オカリンのところへ戻ってきます。少しだけ待っててね。私は法院京馬のことが好き。でもね、岡部倫太郎のことはもっと好きだよ。
The combination of this message, the emotions welling up inside him, and seeing the rebuilt phone wave pushes him to save Mayuri and Suzuha. He gives them instructions on how to make the time leap machine. Because of this, they manage to make it in 2 days' time, giving him enough time to return to the fated day to try again. Once he time leaps, he immediately tells Daru and Maho to delete Amadeus and reveals Leskinen's true intentions. After that, he rushes over to Radio Kaiken to find the time machine, making it in time before Suzuha and Mayuri leave. He thinks to try and stop Mayuri from going, but Mayuri convinces him not to. She has to do this to save her Hikoboshi, to save Kaguri, and to save Kurisu. Only Okabe can save her, but only Mayuri can save Okabe, so he concedes and he helps them in their plan. The attack still happens, Leskinen and Kaguri still show up, and Kaguri defends the time machine. Moeka this time around shows up and shoots Kaguri because Kaguri kept her alive and manipulated her after the shooting in January. The final player in this scenario shows up, the helicopter. It fires at the time machine, but Mayuri and Suzuha are able to leave in the nick of time. The mission was successful. Okabe and the lab won. Whether Mayuri and Suzuha were successful themselves is yet to be determined, but this is only the beginning, for the lab has more work to do. And as for Vega and Altair ends, there's still 4 more endings I have to discuss, including the true ending, so let's go over those real quick before I move on to my thoughts. Alright, we're almost done with the breakdown, so let's just get straight to it. The endings for this game differ from the first game, in that they are character endings, but they aren't romance endings. This is evident with the first ending I'll be talking about, Gehenna Stigma, or the Leskinen ending. This ending is on the Vega and Altair side. On December 15th, you have to leave your phone on, and on January 23rd, you have to answer Amadeus' phone call. This leads to the worst outcome for the entire series, Okabe fully giving up and resigning himself to Amadeus. This ending not only leads to Maho being brainwashed, but Okabe being kidnapped by Leskinen as well. Here he gets all the information he needs for Stratfor in the time machine, accelerating World War III significantly. Even after that, Okabe still does nothing. He lives in a hell of his own creation. Next we have Twin Automata, the first ending in the promised Rinascimento side. This is Maho's ending, and we see a deeper look at her character and her relationship with Makise. You get it by turning off your phone on December 15th, and then not answering the phone on January 2nd to get the ending. We see scenes like Okabe, Maho, and Moeka talking about AI, Maho, Ferris, and Moeka having a sleepover, Maho and Moeka's friendship, Sergeant Nai, and fragments of Maho and Kurisu's friendship. But the fun times don't last forever when Maho's kidnapped alongside Professor Leskinen. Reyes was the perpetrator, and she immediately kills Leskinen. Now she forces Maho to hand over administrative rights for Amadeus to her and Derpa. Long story short, Moeka manages to help save Maho by killing Reyes, but it comes at a cost of deleting Amadeus so Reyes couldn't get her hands on her. A month later, Maho heads back home, her time with her new friends weighing on her mind, for both the good and bad repercussions it had on her. Next we have the fifth ending, Recursive Mother Goose. On December 15th, turn off your phone. Then on January 2nd, answer the phone call from Amadeus immediately. Lastly, on January 15th, ignore the phone call. This will lead you to the Kaguri ending. Erasing Kurisu's memories works, but since Kaguri did it for you and not Okabe, it sent you to a different world line. Here we see Okabe go on a wild goose chase to find a tune Mayuri was humming that could restore Kaguri's memories. We find out that Mayuri heard it from Suzuha, who heard it from Yuki in 2036. Yuki from the present heard it from a woman in her baking class, who turned out to be Okabe's mother, and Okabe's mother heard it from Okabe when he was younger. So how did Okabe hear it? Apparently he heard it from Kaguri back when she escaped Luskinen's lab. They met on a rainy day when he was going to see Mayuri in a cemetery after her grandmother passed away. To be more specific, the day that he saved her. But before he goes, he runs into Kaguri. They talk and she starts humming this song. He then leaves to find Mayuri, but Okabe doesn't remember this. This would be considered bootstrap theory, where something has no defined origin point but it exists concretely. But someone actually disproved it in a comment from NikoB's Let's Play of this game. I'll show the comment on screen now if you're interested. I'll also link the video in the description as well. Anyway, Kaguri gets into a car crash, but Okabe manages to save her in the nick of time. The car crash does jog her memory though, bringing back the 12-year-old Kaguri that loves her mother. The two of them live in relative peace for the next half a year. But when summer comes and Suzuha has to leave, instead of Mayuri doing it, Kaguri takes her place. Suzuha and Kaguri are outsiders on the principle of time travel. They belong in 2036, not 2011. So if anyone should do it, Kaguri believes it should be her. She'll perform Operation Arclight and save Okabe in August 2010. And with that they leave, bringing the ending to a close. All that's left now is the true ending, Milky Way Crossing. This ending requires you to get promised Rinascimento before going through Vega and Altair. Once you beat Vega and Altair, the true ending will play. The requirements aren't as steep as the first game, but that's because the ending itself isn't as long as the first game's true ending. Milky Way Crossing shows us the future gadget lab in 2035. After Mayuri and Suzuha left, they worked on 2 time machines. The one Suzuha will use, and one specifically made for Okabe. The goal is to find Mayuri and Suzuha after they performed Operation Arclight, but they didn't have enough fuel to return, so they're stuck somewhere with no hope of escaping. That is, until Okabe comes to find him. While it isn't necessary to achieve Steins Gate, he has to save his hostage and niece. If he leaves now, it also fulfills his designated death date, maintaining the timeline's continuity. Before they leave, however, Okabe has to send a message to his 2010 self to deceive the world, while Daru has to send his message about Operation Arclight to Suzuha. All this came to pass because of how he faked his death in 2036 during the promised Rinascimento route. It sparked the thought process of how Okabe in the Future Gadget Lab can not only deceive the world, but himself as well. Like the comment I showed earlier mentioned, reaching Steins Gate wasn't a single person effort. So with the help from other world lines, the lab members, and Makise Kurisu, Okabe activates the machine and leaves to find the final 2 missing lab members. The rest is up to 2010 Okabe. Let's do this in one take. Back in my video on the first game, I called it a masterpiece. I genuinely believe that it's a timeless story, despite the game having flaws. If you want to hear why, go watch that video in the description below. But with high praise and nostalgia backing my opinion of the first game, how does the sequel compare? Let's find out by starting with the gameplay. It's a visual novel.
There's nothing.
Seriously though, don't expect much. It's like the first game where you reply to messages on your phone, make decisions for endings, and achievement hunt if you want to. Besides that, it's just you and the story. So if you aren't a fan of visual novels as a genre, then this isn't for you. You'd be better off watching the game instead of buying it. Which I want to make clear, watching a game is a viable means of consuming a game's story. That's how I consumed a lot of the games that I'm playing now, through Let's Plays. As for the achievements, I did 100% the game, but it isn't anything impressive. There's less trophies compared to the first game, and most of them are tied to chapters and endings. If you want an easy game to 100%, then this is the one. I can't lie though, I'm not a completionist, but even I was disappointed by the decrease in unlockable trophies compared to the first game. Moving on, however, let's talk about the presentation. I love it so much. It's amazing and immediately makes itself distinct from the first game, while still maintaining Steins Gate's identity. We see this with the main menu and how it's black, red, and orange, compared to the first game's blue, gray, and tan. Instead of having the time machine, we have Okabe and Makise, immediately showing us what this game is about. The title still has the graph paper, protractor circles, along with the math and science symbols, but the game also has butterflies in the tips menu, pulling on the butterfly effect theme. The extras menu is decorated like a folder on a Mac computer. I only just realized this and I love it. The configuration screen has all the Future Gadget Lab inventions from 1 through 8 sprinkled throughout it. The clear list has all the endings inside of Nixie tubes, made to look like the world line meter Alpha Suzuha gave to Okabe in the first game. That's not even mentioning the game itself. The text boxes carry on that rusty and dirty design, adding more connection to the game's visual themes of post-war destruction. The in-game menus follow this trend as well. It looks like a monitor you'd see in Suzuha's time machine or the Future Gadget Lab in 2036. Okabe also has a smartphone now. The game came out in 2015, but it's still based in 2010, so bro was living ahead of his time. I got added again. The way Ryan is set up is super cute too. The custom Steins emojis the group has are so minor but so impactful. I really meant it when I said I loved this game's presentation. I can go on a limb and say that I enjoy it even more than I do the first game. It's so tied to the game's themes that I can't think of Steins Gate 0 without thinking about how it looks first. But on the same token, let's talk about the character design and the art style. If you watched the last video, you know how much I love the first game's art style. It's just as much of a factor into why I love that game as the characters themselves. That's why I say with a heavy heart that this game's art style is mixed for me. While the game's art is still done by Ryohei Fuke, the characters have a new art style. It looks pretty good for what the game's going for. The new characters like Maho, Leskinen, Reyes, Fubuki, Kaide, Yuki, and Kaguri all look solid. The returning characters that got updated designs look right at home with the art style as well. An issue I have with this game's visuals though is that certain characters didn't get updated designs. For example, Yugo Tenoji, Mayuri's summer outfit for school, and Makise Kurisu. They have their old designs from the first game. The problem is that the art styles are too different for them to coexist in this game. The dissonance between the two is awkward and janky in my opinion. I'd rather have sprites in a new art style because it keeps the game's visual cohesion, even if those characters aren't in the game as a result. It makes no sense to me because Makise has an updated sprite of her in a lab coat in Zero's art style, but they still use her first game sprite in the Alpha World line. It would make sense if it was just a sprite for Amadeus, but they use it for Maho's flashbacks with Kurisu in them. I want to take a second to apologize if I'm coming off as a brat. I'm complaining about sprites in the visual novel for goodness sake, but I want to make one thing abundantly clear. This art isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. Ryohei Fuke has more talent in One Pinky than I do in multiple timelines. It's just that this art style represents the characters visually. It's not like an anime where it could be a bad frame or two, but that wouldn't be indicative of the whole product. Their sprites are all we see besides the CGs. The characters are represented by them, so it sucks to see when some of them get shafted like that. Moving on to the CGs, they're pretty good. There are a significant amount of them in this game, so we get the whole shebang. There's multiple artist journeys, so it's up to you on which style you prefer. I ultimately do prefer the first game CGs because of the emotional ties I have to them. The Zero CGs are still really good, even surpassing some of the first game CGs at its best. Others can look kinda rough in comparison, but for the most part, the CGs are consistently quality. The music is good as well too. There's updated tracks in the first game that have been given that Zero sound, but the new ones do a good job in standing out. Recommend giving it a listen if you like the BGM. Can't say whether I like the first game or Zero's soundtrack more. They're both phenomenal to me. Let me know what you prefer down below in the comments. The voice acting, just like the first game, is really good. It might even be better than the first game, honestly. Okabe's voice actor, Mamoru Miyano, put up a performance so good it's like he was unconscious. Mayuri's voice actor, Kana Hanazawa, and Maho's voice actor, Sayuri Yahagi, have good performances as well. The voice acting in this game is solid all around. The standouts definitely stick in your mind. Let's do it. Now that we've had an intimate look at this game's story, time to give my thoughts on it. This game is in a tough position because you're writing a sequel for a game that doesn't need one. Steins Gate functions as an independent story because it was written without Zero in mind. Meanwhile, Zero is tasked with writing a story that fits inside the first game's plot, while also detailing how Beta Okabe managed to do everything he did before the true ending. And if I'm being frank, it's difficult. The beginning and end are already predetermined, so the only wiggle room the writers have is the middle. But that section is so open they can really do anything with it. And for what we got as a product, it's a solid story. The pacing isn't as slow as the first games, but it definitely takes its time setting up plot threads early on. That pacing picks up though when you choose your route. Unfortunately, I believe your enjoyment of the story is contingent on which route you pick first. While the game is made so you can play either one first, Promise Rinascimento into Vega and Altair is definitely the correct way to consume the story. Admittedly, splitting the routes feels meaningless when the story works the same way if it had the first game's linear story structure, but I digress. If I had to choose, Promise Rinascimento has the stronger route but a weaker climax. That route had me locked in until Reyes showed up and immediately ruined my investment. More on her later though. Meanwhile, Vega and Altair has a weaker route but a strong climax. But no matter what, when people remember this game, it's the Vega and Altair route and Milky Way Crossing endings that come to mind. That whole section is just too iconic and memorable to forget. While I have fond memories of this game's story, it definitely isn't perfect. There's certain parts of the story that I just can't get behind. The Kaguri Izuki twist is one of them, but again, more on that later. There's also the action. There's too much of it for me. What made moments like the lab getting raided so impactful in the first game was how sudden it was and that there was no other moment like it in the game. Meanwhile, Okabe gets pulled up on so much in this game that it feels like he's John Wick in John Wick 2. Them boys want him and his goofball brigade dead. As a result, however, it robs moments like that of their severity because of how often they happen. I found it more funny than tense by the end of the story because I was just fatigued by it. I wish the writers removed one or two of those scenes so that the other ones held more weight as a result. Anyway, the endings are pretty cool. If I had to rate them, this is what they'd be. Milky Way Crossing is definitely my favorite by far, but Recursive Mother Goose is a sneaky contender too. Let me know what y'all think down below. Alright, it's time to go all out and talk about the characters. This section is going to take a while, so bear with me. These characters are amazing. Some are duds, some have been improved from the first game, and some are just flat out amazing. At its peak, the highs for these characters even eclipse some of the first games. Steins Gate Zero has 22 characters in comparison to the first game's 14. Of course, not all are important or have much I want to discuss about them, so I'll only be talking at length about a select few. I humbly apologize because it's a terrible day to be a Shimuyama fan. Now, let's start with the new additions. Characters like Fubuki and Kaede are cool, but don't add much besides when they're called upon to do so. Fubuki definitely carries the weight of the importance out of the two though, her reading Steiner stuff being the main reason for that. Kaede has some contributions, but enough for me to say definitively whether she's a good character or not. Reyes and Leskinen I have opinions about. I dislike Reyes a lot. I feel like she's a lesser Leskinen in almost every facet. I understand why she's here. Leskinen can't be the villain for every route, but it sucks that every route she's a villain in, she's just sorry and straight cheeks. Feel free to call me a hater, but Leskinen is infinitely better as a villain. He's not only the bigger threat, but I believe he's written better. This man isn't using a mask with Okabe and Maho. He's showing them who he really is, but Stratford comes first no matter the cost. He isn't insane or laughably evil. He genuinely believes in his ideals, so much so that he'll brainwash children in the future and use them for a plot that spans time, all for the sake of his beliefs. Next we have Kaguri. A lot of people don't like her, and I was in that camp when I was younger too, but having played the game for myself, I've come around on her. I think she's at her best in the Promised Rinascimento route, that being because in Vega and Altair we barely see her, and when we do, it's in the motorcycle suit and in the ending. Not to mention the Kaguri Izuki twist is a lot of people's main gripe with her. I completely understand too. From a writing standpoint, it's a stain on the route to know that Yuki's only really here for the Promised Rinascimento side. While the twist makes sense and works for the route, I feel like it's an injustice to two characters, especially considering how good Kaguri actually is in Promised Rinascimento. Her struggle with brainwashing, amnesia, Kurisa's memories, Leskinen and being a time traveler. It's a lot for a girl to deal with when she's mentally 12 years old. Kaguri's at her best when we get to see her be a normal girl. Recursive Mother Goose and Milky Way Crossing give us that. It's a nice send-off to her character to heal from Yuki's plastic surgery and her trauma. She doesn't deserve what happens to her. She's a victim of circumstance, never having a choice in who she wants to be and what she can do. Speaking of Yuki, the interactions between the Amane family are really nice. They all make each other better, be it Yuki unintentionally babying Suzuha, Daru intentionally babying Suzuha, or Suzuha playing matchmaker. It's all cute and endearing. Yuki herself is a nice addition to the cast. She isn't the most important, but she does surpass her ties with Mayuri and her family, becoming a character with her own reason to be in the story. I like Alpha Worldline Suzuha more than Beta, but Beta is still a good character. She's more reserved and guarded thanks to her upbringing in the future, but she still cares about her loved ones, as evident by the nickname she has for everyone. She's a girl who was robbed of a childhood, just like Kaguri, but she didn't let it break her. Instead, she fights to prevent other people from experiencing the hell she went through. She's different enough to be her own character, but she's still Suzuha, and I like that. And as the last of the Amane family, we have Daru. This game gave him significantly more screen time and I couldn't be happier. He's still a pervert, so if you didn't like that before, you won't now. He's still an infinitely better character despite that though. Not only do we see his true character as a father, but as a friend and member of the lab. We knew he was vital, but seeing his importance to the lab outside of his hacking is awesome. He's Okabe's right hand for a reason. Time and again he proves that the friendship between him and Okabe is real. A major complaint I had for his character in the first game that has now been remedied. Daru shines in this game and is the perfect way to demonstrate that he's a valued member of the lab and to the story as a whole. Next we have Ferris and Nukako. They're not too different, but I like their inclusion when it comes to helping the lab. We really see them put pride in their titles as lab members 6 and 7. I enjoyed them here and feel like they were implemented nicely. Nae, Tenoji, and Mooka don't play as much of a role as the last game, but they do have their place in the story. Mooka's redemption arc in Twin Automata was a nice way to expand her character and give her a cute friendship with Maho. Besides that, I don't have much to add, so let's move on to Mayuri. She's mostly the same from the first game, but she carries a deep sense of guilt from Okabe's trauma. She's the only one who truly understands him, and so she knows how much pain he's in, and the worst part is that she can't do anything about it. Ever since he came back from trying to save Kurisu, she coddled him, but now realizing it might not have been the best decision to do that. His struggle comes from something she knows nothing about because it happened in the Alpha World line. He also won't tell her what's wrong, so when the opportunity arises to go back in time with Suzuha, she takes it. Mayuri loves Okabe and Hoi and Kyoma. Hoi and Kyoma represents Okabe's true self, so she'll do anything to help bring him back. Lastly, we have Maho and Okabe. These two are the best characters in the game, bar none. So let's start with Maho. She's one of my favorite characters in this series. Her character, her contributions, her personality, I love it all. Whether it be her relationship with Amadeus, Okabe, or Kurisu in her flashbacks, I just love how Maho's handled in this game. She's not a replacement for Kurisu. She isn't an inferior version of her, nor is she a second fiddle. She's Maho Hiyajo, the genius scientist and a valued member of the Future Gadget Lab. She carved her own path and became her own person. Now we have the main man himself, Okabe Rintaro. A lot of people don't like his portrayal in Zero because of how whiny he can be. He's too afraid to try again. He's too complacent, stagnant, and traumatized. He's falling from grace. That's why I like it though. Okabe is at his worst. He's hit rock bottom even more so than when he was saving Mayuri. It hurts to see in comparison to the man we knew in the first game. That's what makes his return to form so great. After going through most of the game like this, it's pure catharsis seeing Hoi and Kyoma return. It's a lot of people's favorite scene because of that. This game, funny enough, leverages the mad scientist. In the first game, you think he's a dork and needs to lock in, but in this game, you need him to be Hoi and Kyoma because it's the only way Okabe can lock in. Again, it's his true self unleashed, his ambitions made bare. Once he does return, he starts moving militant. Beta Okabe locks it and never looks back. It gives me a deeper appreciation for Okabe as a character. He's only 18 going on to 19 years old. The world is against him, but he isn't alone. The odds stacked up against the lab are insurmountable, but Hoi and Kyoma and Okabe consistently make those odds seem feasible. No one can save Makise Kurisu except Okabe Rintaro, but Okabe can't do it without the lab. He needed hope and a slap to the face. And that's what Steins Gate Zero is all about, a tale of hope born from tragedy. While it could be easier for Okabe to give up, it's not what he wants internally or something that he should do. He has a chance, and that's all he needs. While he won't get to see Steins Gate himself, at least he tried. He can rest easy with his friends in this worldline because he did all he could. One version of him is happy with Kurisu, and that's amazing. Steins Gate Zero is a story where we knew the ending, but despite that, it doesn't take away from the story it tells. It's a story that can't stand by itself, so it helps the first game instead. Fitting because of how Zero Okabe ends up helping his younger self in the same way. The story isn't as good as the first, nor is it as fulfilling, which inherently this game's true ending never could be as fulfilling as the first game's, but it's still a story worth experiencing. I love what this game does for the franchise because it makes the first one even better. While it may not be perfect, it left an indisputable impact on my heart, just like how the first game did. It's an 8.5 out of 10, a story always worth my time. Steins Gate Zero is an interesting anime for me because it was my first impression of Zero's story. Releasing in 2018, the game had already been out for 3 years by that point, but I couldn't buy it because I was young and broke, nor could I watch it because there was a ban on YouTubers playing it for a while. So when the anime was airing, that would be my first time consuming the story. Now that I'm older, I played the game for myself and have gone through the story multiple times. So with this new perspective, how does the anime hold up? Not only compared to the game, but to the 2011 Steins Gate anime as well. Let's find out by starting with the story. Unlike the 2011 anime, the changes here are substantial enough to merit me mentioning them. For starters, the anime takes a different approach to adapting the game's story. Instead of adapting the routes respectively, White Fox takes parts from both Vega and Altair, Promised Rinascimento, Twin Automata, and Recursive Mother Goose and just mushes them together. It's an approach that sounds bad in theory. I'm definitely not helping by describing it like that either. This method can potentially mess with the story's integrity. I won't lie, certain scenes definitely do suffer because of it, but in practice I'd say this approach is the right way to go. There are scenes locked away in Twin Automata and Recursive Mother Goose that are just too important to Maho, Moeka, and Kaguri that White Fox would be remiss to not include them in the anime. Scenes like Moeka, Maho, and Ferris' sleepover, Mayuri and Kaguri's bonding, and the hunt for the tomb. They all fit into the story perfectly alongside Vega and Altair and Promised Rinascimento scenes used in the anime. Certain scenes and when they happen are changed as well. While the Alpha Kurisu section would happen after New Year's in the game, it instead happened during a New Year's party in the anime. This is usually when Okabe would switch to the Russian world line, or how 2036 Time Leap happened in January during Promised Rinascimento, but in the anime it happens in the summer after Okabe time leaps to save Mayuri and Suzuho. Changes like these dramatically change the impact of the scene by just moving it. White Fox also adds new scenes exclusive to the anime, like Moeka and Okabe looking for clues on Kaguri's brainwashing, almost all of episode 8, all of episode 22, and some of episode 23. Episode 22 and 23 are the best examples of new additions enhancing the story. All the changes so far still tell the story faithfully, but they had improvements to make it better. Of course, it isn't perfect. I don't like the Okabe and Maho bedroom scene in Ferris's apartment in the anime. It missed the point and changed the meaning of the conversation entirely. But besides that, I love the changes made to the story. From episode 20 to 23, I was geeked out of my mind. Most people would say 16 to 23 was the full stretch, and I wouldn't blame them for that. But for me, 20 to 23 locked me in so hard. It was like the first time I watched the anime all over again. Moving on, the voice acting is solid as always, so I don't have much to add on that department. Mamoru Miyano's voice acting as Hoen Kiyoma was amazing as always though. I can't speak on Zero's dub because I personally haven't watched it myself, so if it's good, let me know in the comments down below. The soundtrack is the same as the game in the 2011 anime, so you can be sure it's quality. There are some anime exclusive tracks if you want to find them on YouTube, but nothing beats the feeling when the 2011 opening starts playing during a hype scene. It's literally unmatched. Now let's go on to the animation. For the 2011 anime, I mentioned how it could be rough at times, but it was redeemed by its art style, coloring, atmosphere, and cinematography. But none of that matters if the anime lacked personality. Luckily, 2011 had tons of personality and it came through with the voice acting and the animation. They blended together to make an adaptation that deserves your attention, even if you played the visual novel and already know the story. Zero, on the other hand, has the voice acting and the animation, but it doesn't have the personality. Zero has the benefit of releasing in 2018, so it has the benefits of being a modern anime. And so while it looks good because of that, it doesn't have the same flair and creativity that the 2011 anime did. Moments like Okabe running back to the lab, Okabe fighting Moeka, the time leaping, and the world line shifts in 2011 felt impactful because they were visually distinct. The personality came through in moments like that. With Zero, however, it just wasn't there. And I want to make it clear, by no means am I saying that this animation is terrible or soulless, but with how visually unique Steins Gate Zero is, and knowing how good White Fox can be thanks to ReZero and the 2011 anime, it's hard not to believe that the animation could be better. Or at least, that's what I would say if it wasn't for a moment in the show that changed my opinion immediately. Episode 21, when Okabe time leads back to 2011. It was exactly what I was looking for. I started tearing up because not only was this moment impactful, but it showed the personality I was asking for. Moments like that stick in a viewer's memory because it made them feel something. That moment right there will live in my heart forever whenever I think about this show because it earned the right to. I felt something because of episode 21. That's all I could ask for. Now let's talk about the characters. Most of them are the same, but some have seen drastic improvement. Moeka is the biggest example because her role was expanded significantly. The story not only gives her more to do, but it allows her the room to redeem her alpha worldline self in Okabe's eyes. And it works extremely well. I can see her and Okabe being friends in the beta worldline, barring her affiliation with CERN of course. When I remember beta Moeka, I remember the anime version of her, which in my opinion is the best version of her to date. Her scenes are cute, she helps the lab out significantly, and she's just a fun character to have in the cast. They did well with her. We also have Amadeus. Amadeus is important in both stories, but due to her connection with Leskinen, she's unfortunately more of a hindrance to the lab than she is an asset. So when she's erased, it's a moment of acceptance for Maho and Okabe, but it's something that needs to be done. But in the anime, it feels like losing Kurisu all over again. That's thanks to her doing more in the show. Like her helping Okabe time leap, or all the times we see Okabe and Maho interact with her. We see more of her, which gives credence as to why a whole episode is dedicated to the dilemma of erasing her. Amadeus isn't Kurisu, and that's the conclusion Maho and Okabe have to accept. She's the last vestiges of their friend's memory, but for the sake of reaching Steins Gate, they have to let her go. Lastly, we have Mayuri. I already talked about her in the character section for the game, but I wanted to expand on the anime's contributions. Mayuri's character arc involves her overcoming guilt from cuddling Okabe after his failed attempt at saving Kurisu. This significant change in his personality hurts Mayuri because she knows he's running away, but she can't help him because he won't let her in. In the game, it's noticeable she's struggling, but it's not at the forefront until Vega and Altair. It's subtle but grows exponentially as the game progresses. In the anime, however, it's clear immediately and she actually confronts Okabe about it. This leads to the iconic "then why do you look so sad" scene in the anime. Her character arc is a lot like Rem in Arc 3 when she helps Subaru. They help their hero by being there through the thick and thin, even if it means being stern with them, even if it means never being the one Okabe loves romantically. If it means seeing their Hikoboshi be great, they'll do it, and I love that. The anime's contributions to her character are welcome additions. Overall, Zero's anime is a 7 out of 10. It's a good show, but I wouldn't call it a masterpiece or even great, and that's okay. Because of how strong the ending stretches, I'll always look back on this anime fondly. I say play the game first and then watch the anime so you can appreciate the differences between the two. After that, you can form your opinion on whether you like it more or less than the game. The anime can be a substitute for the game, but I personally don't recommend that approach. And with that, I bring this video to a close. The script ended up being 88 pages long and the video is almost 50 minutes. I can by far say that this is the most effort I put into a video besides like first Steins video. I do plan on playing the remake when it comes out, but I need a break from this series for a bit because I've been going hard on it since June. I'm glad I did this though. As I mentioned countless times, I love this series. So while I am drained, I'm glad I gave it this much effort. I'm currently playing The Greatest Attorney Adventures on stream if you're interested in that. Those games are really good, so I recommend checking them out if you like this video. As for what's next, I have a couple of videos in the works, so stay tuned for those. One of them's even bigger than this one, but don't expect that anytime soon. Until then, however, I want to sincerely thank you all for watching, especially if you made it this far. I appreciate your viewership and hope that you enjoyed. To the people who waited, thank you dearly. And to the new faces, there's more content like this on the channel if you're interested. Also, thank you to the Steins wiki. I wouldn't have been able to make this video without it. 2025 has been a crazy year for the channel, so let's hope 2026 is even crazier. Until then, once again, thank you so much for watching. As always, hope you enjoyed and I'll see you all in the next video. And I hope you stay safe out there during the holidays. Peace.
How did you make my drink?
I shook it.
Just shook it. And
Yeah.
what kind of tequila did you give me?
Lalo.
Lalo? With
Yep.
what kind of lime juice?
Freshly squeezed lime.
Okay, well you got great curls. Are you from here?
No.
Where are you from?
New Hampshire.
I'm from New York City, but by way of Michigan.
Nice.
Oh, well, you know.